Clean shirt, new shoes, and I don't know where I'm going to. Silk suit, black tie. I don't need a reason why. They come running just as fast as they can. Because every girl crazy about a sharp dressed man. Now, those were the lyrics from the classic ZZ Top song. They sounded much better from them than it did from me. Nevertheless, you may be wondering why in the world did you just reference ZZ Top on a health focused show? Well, when it comes to optimal health and performance, of course, there's nutrition, there's exercise, there's stress, there's sleep management, there's your personal relationships. And of course, there's supplements and vitamins and other biohacks. These are the big talking points. But what if I told you that there's an underrated element and category that many are missing out on, and it's a health amplifier? It's a performance enhancer. And this can be the difference between getting everything that you want out of life. Now, that is a bold statement. Well, not exactly. Your presentation and how you show up to the world speaks volumes. After all, one look is worth 1,000 words. And my guest today is going to explain why, along with having you become the most magnetic person in any room that you step in. And of course, become a sharp dressed man or woman, and much, much more. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Executive Health and Life. I'm your host, Julian Hayes II, back at it again, back in the saddle, ready for another fascinating conversation with another fascinating individual. I say that every episode because everyone is fascinating, because I only reach out to people who really interest me in some form or fashion. So speaking of the word fashion, we're going to talk about style today. I know, what does style have to do with executive health and life? Well, it actually has a lot to do with it, because if you think about it, communication is, much to probably people's opinion, it's not really about verbal. That's a very small percentage of it. The majority of it, which is 93%, I think, is non-verbal. Something as simply how you enter a room can help you land a deal, move up the corporate ladder, I don't know, meet your soulmate, a lot of other things. And the gentleman today is, I think I randomly found him. I forgot how. And I was on his Instagram. I was like, wow, I love the saying. It was, we make, you wear, they stare. I love that tagline. And then I saw the pictures. I was like, man, this is a sharp looking fellow. And I was like, you know what? I need to reach out to him. So I'm here with none other than Roberto Revilla. And he is an award-winning clothes maker, a tailor. He has a bunch of different awards that he's been recognized for. And some of those are the Fashion and Lifestyle Awards, the 2019 Best Bespoke Tailors. Another is the Bride Book Wedding Menswear Supplier of the Year. And there's many, many, many more. He has a long resume, and he's also a huge 007 fan. So I had to get him on. Without further ado, Roberto, how are you doing today?
I'm really good, thank you. It's really good to see you again. It was so good to have you a guest on my podcast a few days ago. So yeah, I'll be getting that into edit very soon and getting that out there in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, no, it's just really, really nice to get to hang out with you again. So thank you so much for inviting me onto your show.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me on your show as well. And so, yeah, as I mentioned, style is a thing that I think if people overlook, or sometimes they even make it more complicated than it needs to be. But before we dive into that, I have to do the obligatory, what is your origin story? Because I haven't ran into too many tailors in my life. And so I wonder, how are they created? Is it something that you just discover as a 5-year-old boy and say, you know what, I want to be a tailor? Or is there some kind of event that happens?
Oh, God, not really. I mean, this isn't going to be as exciting as a superhero origin story, I guess. But then most superhero origin stories are a meteorite hits near where they were, or they get bitten by something and then they get powers and that's it. So I guess mine's probably a little bit more convoluted. So I'll try and give you the briefest kind of version of the story. But I grew up in a household that was not like poverty stricken, but there were times when my mom and dad were struggling quite a bit. And so like, for example, I remember when I was 5 years old, my first sibling was born, and my dad was basically running probably 2 or 3 jobs at that time, trying to keep a roof over our heads. And he told my mum that she couldn't come home with the baby, that she needed to do whatever she could to stay in the hospital, because at least that was 2 less mouths for him to feed. And then he just needed to worry about me. And I was just getting fed, tins of baked beans and bread, basically. It's a wonder how I got to 6 foot by the age of 10, 11 years old. But there we go. So yeah, so I kind of, and then my dad started his own business. So I grew up in that kind of environment where I didn't really get to play with the other kids at school, because my dad would be there in his van to pick me up at the end of the school day, and so I would always work with him. My Because I was a very fast growing child, I was just growing out of my clothes so quickly, and my mum and dad couldn't afford to keep buying me clothes like every few months. So they would sometimes repurpose like some of my dad's old clothes. So like my dad's about 5'9", 5'10", I want to say. And I got to that height pretty quick. Like, I mean, I was always a really lanky kid. So I think by about the age of 10, I was already up there, And so my mum would basically just dig out my dad's clothes. Now my dad was in his 20s in the 70s, and I'm, growing up in the 80s and 90s. And the clothes in the 70s around that time, and as a 007 fan, you'll know as we go into the Roger Moore era that it's all kind of big flares and things.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes these are the things that I would have to wear to school. And what happens when you are an ethnic minority kid, predominantly white school, kids are really mean to you, and then the clothing just gave another layer of excuse for them to kick the hell out of me. So that was when I kind of first started to take, I wouldn't say an interest in clothes, because at the time I hated my clothes, but I started to realize that what you wore would obviously had some kind of impact on the way that other people saw you. In this case, people saw me as a loser. And so, I'd have to start kind of taking to these flares and things, trying to, cut them down with scissors and sew them badly together again to try and make them look a little bit more sort of on trend. And then as soon as I, got my first part-time job and I was earning my own money and I was able to start buying my own clothes when I was in my teens, that was where I really started to sort of experiment and, play around with, what I wanted my own identity to be fashion-wise. And I don't think I really had an identity. I just was trying to copy other people because I wasn't a very confident kid. I was quite introverted. That's probably as a result of all the bullying. And I studied kind of more creative subjects, so English language, art and design, things like that. And so, I didn't know that I wanted to get into fashion, to be honest. I didn't really, because again, being from a sort of, quite a strict household, and the upbringing that I have, especially a lot of ethnic minority parents, I don't know if it's the same in America, it probably is, but they want you to do well, they want you to go into a safe profession, for job security, and so that you're attracted, you're a good prospect for someone to marry and all the rest of it. I know that you were going to go into the medical profession, and then you pretty much ditched that after a short period of time. I went to college we call it university over here, to study, I think it was management studies or business science or something. I can't remember, but I lasted about 2 weeks. And then I had to kind of go, and then I tried to become an accountant, and I lasted about 6 months. And then eventually I just got a sales job, and I got a sales job at an IT company. And then I was kind of like, I thought that I'd want to get into fashion, but then at the time, so you're talking late 90s, early 2000s now, Savile Row, which is, the institution of London, that's the famous street where, Bond got his tailoring done. I mean, Sean Connery himself, used to get his suits made on Savile Row, but, everybody on the Savile Row was if I'm allowed to say it, is white or was white. So there weren't people that looked like me and you that were working down there. So that wasn't really an avenue for me. So I got a sales job at an IT company, and I did really well there for about 4 years. And then when the company went bust and we all got made redundant, that was then when I had the opportunity presented to get into the fashion, clothing, tailoring industry. An American company had opened in Europe, and they were visiting tailors. And so I went and did that for what I thought was only going to be a couple years, because I didn't know how it was going to work out. But I ended up there for 7 years. I was one of the top clothiers in Europe, as far as they were concerned. And I built up a really big clientele. And then eventually I left with a couple of other tailors in, I think it was 2009, to go start a small kind of boutique tailors near the Bank of England. And we did that for 2 years, and it was fine, but it ended up kind of more a lifestyle business for them, and I was the one that was pulling in quite a lot of the sales, or most of the business. And so in the end I said, look, I really want to build a brand, and I can either do that with you guys, or if you guys aren't going to pull your socks up, I'm going to go and do it on my own, and no hard feelings. I don't want to fall out with anyone. And so that's what we decided to do in the end. And so I went on my own, and I launched Roberto Revilla London in 2011. And we just celebrated we're now heading towards our 12th anniversary this September. We just had our best year ever in 2022. And, we're not just tailors, we create an impact on the people that we serve. So, my mission is to make life as easy for my clients as possible with regards to the clothing area of their lives, but also to help them to find an identity and to help put them in their best light.
Yeah, and speaking on that, before we even talk about like things like how to build a wardrobe or anything, I'm curious, when your clients come to you, what's the main reason that they're coming to you? Because I imagine that, yeah, what's the main thing that the clients come to you for?
So it's a couple things, maybe three things. We'll see where we get to by the time I finished answering your question in the next half an hour. The that's an in joke between me and Julian, because on my podcast we were, we went on for a long time, which is cool because like good energy. So it's either because they hate shopping for clothes and they don't have time to do it. So, you imagine you go to a tailor, you get a really good relationship with them, they understand you, and they're making you clothes from the ground up. So your tailor's always got your size. You don't, when you go to stores and you buy stuff off the rack, you could try a size 32 jean on in one place,
mm-hmm.
and you could try a size 32 in another, and in another, and they're all going to fit different. And none of them will maybe feel quite right. Whereas your tailor should, if he's good or she's good, they should always have your measurements and they should always be consistent. So that's one reason people come to someone like me. Another reason is just because they cannot find stuff that fits them off the rack. And then a third reason that people might come to me is because they have been struggling with how to dress. And so they just get to a position in life where they can afford to pay someone to do all the thinking for them, and to kind of, I guess, coach them is probably the best way to describe it, so that I don't keep talking and talking. But basically to kind of coach them, curate their wardrobe, and maybe curate a style for them that then becomes, for men, basically, we do a lot of experimenting when we're younger. Mm-hmm. And then as we get older and we get into our kind of 40s and 50s, we get a bit more comfortable in our skin, we kind of find a style that works, and we pretty much stick with it till the day that we die. And that's what, and that's the third reason why people might come to someone like me. The fourth reason might be because they were working with someone already who was never doing a good job, and then all of a sudden they find out about me, or someone tells them about me, mm-hmm. and all of a sudden they have a solution that's better than what they were doing before. And I'd like to say 85% of the time, if not 90% of the time, when people come to work with me the first time, then they'll continue working with me till infinity, basically.
It's an excellent retention rate. Excellent.
Yeah.
But
I still got clients somewhere. I remember my very first client was a guy called Simon Glenn, and I used to knock door to door when I first started, and I used to speak to the front of house people, usually ladies, because that's just the way it is, and explain to them that I was just kind of newly qualified and I needed some help, and I was trying to grow my clientele. Could you tell me who the busiest people are in this building, and could I leave some information for them? And they'd be like, yeah, sure. And then I would call back a few days later and they would put me through to whoever I'd left information for. And I remember the first guy that gave me a chance was a guy called Simon Glynn on the 3rd of November 2002. And I still look after him today. In fact, he only lives 5 minutes up the road from me. And I remember what he ordered. I remembered that it was a black suit with grey stripes, and we put a silver lining on the inside of it. And I remember his measurements that day. He was a 40.5 chest, 48 shoulder circumference, 34 waist, 40.5 on the seat, out seams 41, etc. Sorry, I don't know why I'm sharing this information, but I guess that kind of highlights the reason why so many of my clients have stayed with me for my entire career. It's because of all this. Because when you care about something or someone to a certain degree, you will remember those details. And I even have it with clients today. They're like, oh, we've been together for like 18 years or 17 years or 10 years or 15. And I'm just like, yeah, it's like, is that first suit I did for you, the grey shark skin that's got a bottle green lining, and we did it 2-button with double vents, and we put side adjusters on it and turn ups. Is that still knocking around in the wardrobe somewhere? And they're just like, how the hell do you remember this stuff? And I'm like, well, it's because I care about you.
Yeah, and I think when you're running your own business and you literally build it from the ground up, it's meaningful. It's a part of you. Because it's blood, sweat, and tears. I'm sure there's a lot of sacrifices that went into that. And I'm sure there's a lot of dark night of the soul moments, as they call it, in the middle of the night, wondering what the hell am I doing? How's this going to work? I don't. And so it's different. I remember when some of the clients where I got my confidence, where I really got my confidence and belief in myself. Because it's one thing to kind of know things from a theoretical standpoint, but to actually see the transformation on someone and to hear the transformation to hear the difference in them, and it's things that you don't expect, that gives you a whole new perspective on what you do, and it's much bigger. Because for me, with style and clothes, it's not just something that you put on. It's a way of expression, but it's also a way of confidence. I remember I became much more confident when I did some research a little bit on different style archetypes and figure what suits me personality wise, and went with that. And I started to show up differently in the world because I felt differently internally. So leading into that, when someone comes with you and let's say they need to build a new wardrobe, or they need to just build a whole new infrastructure themselves, what's kind of the first steps that you do when you are going about consulting and helping someone build out their style?
Well, you kind of I always want to get to know the person better. So before we start actually talking about clothes, I mean, unless they've got any preconceived ideas, I want to get to know more about them, their ambitions, where they want to go, how they want to project themselves, who they hang out with, where they travel, in their personal lives, what do they like to do when if they're going on a date with their wife or whatever, or if they're single, where do they hang out? I try and gather as much information about them as possible, because there's no point. It's like sometimes you'll go into a store and you'll be like, hey, I need a new outfit, and then they just suddenly start pulling stuff off. They give you a sideways look for a second, they're like, okay, and then they start grabbing stuff off the rails and getting you to try stuff on, and you're kind of like, half this stuff I don't even like I would never. So I always want to make sure that I know the person that I'm going to be recommending things for, so that what I'm recommending, they almost feel like I'm reaching inside their mind and I'm kind of pulling things out, or at the very least, what I'm suggesting for them just makes complete sense. So that's the first step. And then based on the answers to those questions, their lifestyle and so on, then you start to sort of roughly sketch out, okay, so this person is in an industry where they don't need to wear a suit every single day, for example. So we probably only need to do work our way towards 2 or 3 of those, but most of their wardrobe is going to be built around smart casual, for example. So we're going to need to work out how many sport coats we're going to need for each season, how many pants we're going to need for each season, and of what type and what type of material, and then what types of colors. And then they're introverted, they want to portray confidence when they're in front of people, but also they're not confident enough to go up and talk to people. So I need to kind of have little, whether it's the colors or little individual touches, I need to have them looking like someone like who's a magnet, who people are, when they walk into a room, are going to want to come up to and talk to and initiate the conversation, so they don't have to, etc., etc., etc. And then I don't know, this is really difficult, by the way, because most of this stuff I just do instinctively. I don't actually think about it because I just know. When I meet someone for the first time, in the first, probably I would say in the first 10 seconds, I know pretty much I know the roadmap for them. I know where I want to take them. The challenge then is that I need to then, kind of take them on that journey over maybe 30 to 60 minutes, what I've just done in less than 10 seconds.
Is that based on instinct, or is that just a energy that you can feel from them, or kind of like an energy or vibe they give off?
I think energy and vibe has always got something to do with it. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question directly, it's instinct. Because I'm very visual, so when I look at someone, I'm not just looking at them right in front of me. I'm suddenly in my mind, I kind of turn them into an avatar that looks like them now, not like an Avatar cartoon. So I'll pull you right now into my mind, and then in my mind palace, I will have different rooms, and each room is a different environment. So one might be a boardroom, one might be a fancy restaurant, one might be a club or a bar, one might be an interview room, one might be a stage, one might be an aeroplane. But all of these places are going on at the same time, and I can see that person in all of them, surrounded by their friends, their family, their colleagues, and so on. And I know in all of those situations, some of them it's sunny, some of them it's raining and cold, and so it's winter, and some of them I probably sound like a complete crazy person right now. And I'm not looking at myself on the screen, so God knows where my hands are going. But so yeah, so literally in a very, very microscopic space of time, I literally have this 360-degree view of them in my mind. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm always right. So in the course of questioning and finding out more about them, then some of the ideas that I originally lodged in my brain might start to change. So in those rooms, you imagine yourself as an avatar in the rooms of my brain. Suddenly, based on what you say to me, I might be changing the color scheme for a season, or changing the cut of an outfit, or or swapping the outfits around for different situations, because I might have you casual in one and more formal in the other, and it actually needs to be the other way around. But yeah, all of that stuff is going on. So it is largely instinct, and it is also very, very difficult to explain and articulate, because I've never had to explain and articulate it ever before. Usually when people say to me, like, I don't know, they're looking for some clue as to whether I understand them or not, I just say to them, look, do you trust me? Because I can see what we need to do. I've already seen it in my mind.
Yeah, this is artistry at its finest. This is like, I imagine when someone is going to hire a painter to come in and they want a portrait in their living room, and usually those types of people say, just give me complete control and trust me. This is why you came to me. I got you. And they're like, how do you know that? And I just know because this is part of your craft. And it's just a gift that you have, that you cultivated over time. And I think that's part of the bespoke experience. And, leading
Sorry,
to.
I'm sorry, Julian. My dog is being like the most annoying little dick. Go to bed. I'm so sorry.
No, I like that.
Okay.
This is the thing with Zoom interviews over the last few years that these kind of things are expected now. It adds a little more flavor to it. It's like going to, I imagine it's like me performing at a concert,
Yeah.
and someone has a few too many whiskeys, and they're getting a little rowdy, and they disrupt the band for a little bit. They take care of them in a second or two, and then they just keep playing like nothing happened. And that's kind of what I imagine this is, at least in my head. So,
Mm.
um, so as I was talking, that's part of it. This is a bespoke experience as well because we're making it from scratch. And so,
Yeah.
mentioning that, I talked to you about this off camera last week, and I think this will be good for listeners as well. Is what is the difference between bespoke and made to measure? Because I think, and then I also sometimes use the word custom as well.
So it was actually on camera, and I've got it all recorded. So
Awesome.
I can send it to you, and you can just cut it into this so that I don't have to. No, I'll do it again. I'll try and give a better example. So bespoke, made to measure. So you basically you have three broad choices when it comes to buying clothing, which is you can go off the rack, so it's been made in a factory and it's already there, and you buy it off the shelf in the store and you go home and you wear it, and it probably doesn't fit right in all places, and maybe it fights against you and it's machine made and all the rest of it. And then made to measure is a step up from that. So made to measure is where the suit's probably still made in a factory somewhere, and it's made to similar kind of block standard sizing categories that ready-made clothes are made to, but a tailor will take measurements from you, maybe a dozen or so, and then those measurements will go to the factory, and then they'll look at it and they'll say, okay, we've got this Julian Hayes guy here who's somewhere between a long and a regular, and he's a 38, 39 chest, so he's a 39 chest, so he's going to be closer to our 38 block, but we need to just bump the chest up an inch. And then his sleeves are measuring 26 and a half. Well, on our 38 block, they're 25 and a half. So we need to add an inch. So they have plus and minus integers within a range for all of the measurements of the garment. And then they basically go, okay, we need to go minus that there, plus that there, plus that there. And what they're doing is they're trying to get you closer to a bespoke fit, but it's not going to be a bespoke fit because half of the suit or whatever it is already predetermined.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get it and they fit you and it fits much better than off the peg, but it's still not perfect. And then bespoke is made completely from the ground up, so it doesn't exist. So very comprehensive, or should be a comprehensive set of measurements are taken, also taken into account your shoulder inclines and the way you stand and your posture and your spine curvature and whether you've got a big ass or not. Prominent calves, like you'd have big calves because you run. You're a maniac. You run stupid distances. And I admire that. I cycle stupid distances. And as a result, so I've got big thighs as well. So that's always important. When you're measuring, not generally just having big thighs. Anyone listening who's got skinny thighs, don't get self-conscious. And then basically with all those measurements, then someone like me will sit down with them for a while and look at everything, and then we'll start to kind of, sort of sketch it out into a pattern. And that pattern is what, will make up all the different sections of your clothes. And then we order the fabric, and the fabric comes to the workroom, and we lay it out and we check it over, and then we lay this paper pattern over the top of the fabric, and we have our chalk and we mark around the paper pattern, we strike out, and then we cut the cloth into all those individual sections and we put the whole thing together. And when you come try it on the first time, you've got this dopey smile on your face and you're confused and you're happy and ecstatic and, you know, kind of feeling like what the hell is going on, because it's the best thing you've ever put on in your life. And also the other weird thing is, if the tailor's done their job properly, you can't feel it because it's made to fit like a second skin, even
Oh,
if it's a heavy garment.
hmm. That's an interesting point because
So bespoke is made for you. So on my
mhm.
Instagram, sorry to interrupt because I just realized that. So on my Instagram, can I share it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I was going to anyway. At Roberto Revilla London, you can find me on Instagram, and if you look at recent reels, depending on when this goes out, but you'll see a reel on my feed of a guy who's being fitted for a bespoke coat,
Hmm.
and it's got white stitching all over it and stuff. And I put a still image, and then I think the day after I posted a reel, and the reel is captioned, "Once complete, this coat will be the only one of its kind on the planet." And then I think I put another clever caption like, you know, bespoke, blah, 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 because you're 1 in 8 billion, because there's like nearly 8 billion humans on the planet, right? And that coat will be the only one of its kind because it was designed out of some ideas that the client had in his own head, that I translated. It wasn't from anything that he'd seen before because it didn't exist. It was inspired by stuff that he had seen, like military coats and things like that. Um, so you know, and there was some other features that he wanted. So he wanted 100% cashmere for warmth. He wanted a padded lining for warmth. But he wanted it to be waterproof and windproof, because he gets cold very easily. So there you've got another challenge. Like, how do you produce 100% cashmere but make it weather tight, basically? Um, so the fabric actually has a membrane backing on it, so it blocks out. So like nothing will get through. I could put a fire hose on him wearing that coat, and nothing's going to get through it.
Holy shit, that sounds
Um,
awesome. Excuse,
yeah, yeah.
excuse my. So,
We,
just to quickly
but so you
interject,
see, yeah.
I so windproof, waterproof, 100% cashmere,
Hmm.
and you can do that kind of thing. Holy shit, that is awesome. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, by the time it's finished, it's probably going to run into like about $4,000 or $5,000, but
Hmm.
just to translate it for what's probably majority of your audience. But yeah, so you know, we got the fabric in, and it, you know, we cut it all in sections, and then you'll see from the photos on Instagram where the white stitching is what's holding it all together, because when we put it on him in a rough form, and then we basically have a look at how it's fitting, and we mark up, and then we take it all apart again, and then we trim it down some more, and then he comes in a week later and we put it on him again. Every time he comes in, the coat is at a closer stage to being completed.
Hmm.
And so that fitting that you saw there is probably two fittings away from being completely finished. um and so every time he comes in and he puts this thing on, it's morphing to his shape more and more and more. And we keep asking him for feedback. And then that feedback gets translated into the garment. And so what he's going to end up with at the end. Oh, and the other thing that we're doing, because then he was like, oh, I don't want to wear a scarf because it's another thing to carry. So is there a way that I can turn the collars up very quickly if the weather changes all of a sudden and actually just protect myself? And so what we're doing, we've just ordered in, we found some material that's magnetic. It's got like a magnetic charge. And we're going to try and inlay that inside the collar, because we were talking about buttons and stuff. And I don't really want to ruin the aesthetics by having
Hmm.
buttonholes in the collar or a button kind of showing. So basically, we're going to sew into the lining of the collar this magnetized material. And what I'm hoping it's going to do is when he turns up the collar of the coat and he crosses the lapels over, he basically he doesn't need to fasten or try and look to see where it catches or anything. He literally can just zoom, just literally close it over. He's completely protective, like just morphs his neck and off he goes. And we're also looking to build some other, just a small piece of like contactless kind of technology using his like travel cards like into the sleeve of the coat, so that when he is traveling on the subway, we call it the Underground in London, he can literally just pass his arm over the thing, and the barriers will open, he can just go through, and he will never, in winter, he'll never forget his travel pass.
Whoa.
So yeah, so we've really kind of put a lot into it. I mean, we don't get to do this every single day, by the way, but this is a very extreme example of where bespoke can get. So by the end of it, this guy's going to have a coat that, in terms of fit, form, function, is just perfect, but also genuinely nothing. There is no other coat like this one on the planet. It won't exist unless he starts showing it to his friends and we get people coming to us saying, hey, could you make us? But even then, if that happened, everybody's requirements are different. Like someone else, like me, I don't need my coat to wrap around my neck because I'm used to being outside because of the cycling that I do. I don't really feel the cold as much. I don't like kind of being all hemmed in. In fact, even if it's cold, I very rarely tend to do the buttons up on my stuff. I run hot anyway. So, you know, I might have a coat kind of like his, but it would never be the same because my requirements are different to his. And that's what bespoke is. Bespoke is about having your clothes made for you and you alone, with you in mind, with everything that you do in them in mind.
Man, that's the worst thing I needed to hear, because now I'm not going to be able to get that out of my head. Not going to get that sounds. That's like
all my stuff, my personal clothes are all bespoke, and but sometimes, because I'm so busy looking after my clients, sometimes, you know, I need something for myself and I haven't had time to do it, and I might be going on holiday or something, and I, believe it or not, then end up having to make do, because if I go and buy like jeans or whatever, or shorts, or, you know, that kind of stuff off the peg, it feels disgusting to me because I'm so used to wearing stuff that's just made for me. As soon as you get something that's not made for you, it fights against you, because it was never designed to be. It was never, you know, like if you went into a store and bought a pair of shorts or a sport coat or something, it was never designed to be worn by Julian Hayes II. It was been designed to be worn by whoever the person is that walks into whatever store in whatever state it's in, and happened to like it and picked it up and walked out with it and paid me money for it. It wasn't designed for that person. It was designed for anybody. Whereas my clothes in my wardrobe that have the Roberto Revilla label on them, every single one of those garments, whether it's a shirt, whether it's a pair of jeans, a chinos, my suits, my top coat, my raincoat, all of those things, the shirt I'm wearing right now in front of you, which, by the way, was a homage to Roger Moore in The Man with the Golden Gun, because for most of that movie, he kind of spends it sort of creeping around in black pants and a black shirt. I kind of thought it looked sophisticated. Yeah, so everything that's in my wardrobe is completely made for me, and it's form-fitting, and I put it on. Basically, your clothes should fit this way. You should put them on and then forget about them. You shouldn't know that you're wearing your clothes all day. That's how free you should feel. And if your tailor's doing that for you, then they're doing a great job.
That's a very powerful description. Very powerful description.
Yeah.
So that guy, or most people, that's a very he had this idea in mind, though, right? When he came to you, right? Okay. So most people, do you have to?
I don't know that he. Sorry, I don't think he. I'm not sure he had the idea in mind. I think he'd basically been trying to buy a coat off the rack for a while, and it just wasn't work. Nothing was working. It was nothing that he liked. But there was some things about something that some coat he liked, and a lot he didn't. And then there was another coat, and there was some things about that he liked, and there was stuff that he didn't. And then there was another coat, and there was some things about that he liked, and other stuff he didn't. So probably what I've created for him. And then he met me because I started making suits and shirts and sport coats and stuff for him. And then I think he saw that there was a possibility for me to be able to create this impossible thing that he just can't find anywhere. And so when he was telling me about all these ideas and I was kind of just sort of working it out, I think this coat is probably the inspiration behind it has probably come from 4 or 5 different off the rack coats that this guy has kind of seen but just never liked. And then we've just taken the best of each one and put it into something that is perfect for him.
Yeah,
and he likes everything about it.
It's like a super coat.
Yeah.
It's almost like, if we're sticking with James Bond references, you're kind of like a little bit, you were being cute right there and designing these cool things.
Yeah. So I like to think I'm James Bond. So when I worked at that IT company, it was like pretty much a dress down policy there. But I always wore 3-piece suits.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much always have done. And for me, that was like my armor. Also because I was a lot younger than everybody else there, and I needed customers to take me seriously. I needed my colleagues to take me seriously. In the end, I just outsold everybody and shut them up. But I always wore suits, and I would always drive in because it was a long drive in every single day. Because I live in at the time I lived in the south of London. This place was in the north. Trying to get from one end of London's a huge city. Trying to get from one end of to the other in a car is kind of crazy. But I'd be listening to soundtracks from Pierce Brosnan 007 movies on the way to work. So I kind of go in with that sort of superhero kind of mindset. And why the hell did I start talking about that?
I mentioned a reference to Q in terms of putting all those gadgets on his jacket.
So I've always had this James Bond persona. And then I went to one of my newer clients' 40th birthdays, and this guy's so successful. He's so lovely with it as well. But he invited me to his 40th, and it was at one of the swanky hotels in London. It was 007 themed. I dressed him for it. And this was one of the best parties I've been to in my life. I mean, we walked in and straight away there were models sprayed in gold, like what's her face in Goldfinger. And 007 logo everywhere. And oh man, it's so hard to describe. But it was amazing. And the next day I was thinking about the night before. Also, I had a really bad hangover. And I said to my wife, because my client MK, he sees himself as this Bond like character. And he drives an Aston Martin, all the rest of it. And I said to my wife, I said, for such a long time, it's like, if anyone's 007 in our circle, I'm 007. I'm the best dressed. I got a great car. I'm supposed to be sophisticated, all the rest of it. If any of our friends are listening to this, they'll be peeing themselves laughing. But I've just realized something. I'm Q. My client's a 007. And she said, honey, you're kind of half right. You're Q and your money penny. So yeah, there we go. So I'm not 007. I'm a combination of Q and money penny. I'm basically my client's bitch. But that's what I'm there for. I'm kind of this coat, I guess, is probably made you think of it, is probably the best example of my workroom is basically Q brunch for my clients.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing to do. It's very interesting to do, because I imagine a lot of days, none of your days are really the exact same.
Never.
Yeah. And so I think that variety sounds very exciting to me. Just like with aging and longevity and stuff, everything changes nearly every week. And so there's really no absolutes. There are a few rules, but there are no rules. And, and so I that's why, I really like this industry as well. Now, you mentioned 3-piece suits. I like 3-piece suits. What do you think it is about 3-piece suits that people generally shy away from now?
I think partly they feel that maybe it's being a little bit too overdressed, and a lot of the time guys think I can't pull that off, right? People see me in a 3-piece suit all the time, and they'll look me up and down. They'll be like, "You look amazing," but I couldn't pull that off. And I just say to them, "Why not? You never tried. I know you can pull it off. You look freaking awesome. You look like a rock star. You look like James Bond." Usually that one is the one that works. And I think the other reason as well is that they think that, a three-piece suit is uncomfortable because it just looks like there's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
And what they don't realize is that, especially if you go to a good tailor and you get your suit made properly. I mean, I wear a three-piece suit all the time. I don't know if it was you I told this story to. I think I did tell you this story, but we very rarely get super hot weather in this country. But we do get the occasional run of heat waves, and in summer we do get some days where the temperature can go up to like hang on, I'm going to translate it to Fahrenheit for you, so like 38, 40, so double it. So the temperature can go to like 100, 110 degrees. And I'll be stood out there sometimes having a cheeky cigarette with my head tailor because he still smokes and he uses me as an excuse to, and sometimes I'll have a cheeky little one with him. Hopefully my health provider is not listening to this. And health insurance provider rather. But it's not unusual for me to be stood out there in a three-piece suit in 40 degree straight 110 degree heat without breaking a sweat. And I have people I'm wearing a shirt and tie, and people will come up to me and they were like, "You look amazing. How the hell are you standing in this heat in a three-piece suit? You're crazy." Because everybody, the whole world is wearing a t-shirt and shorts in that kind of weather, and
Yes.
flip-flops as well, which, by the way, I really disagree with. You should never ever wear beach footwear in the city. I don't care how hot it is.
Thank you. I have to I hope one of my friends is listening to this, who a couple who wear that kind of beach wear in cities where there's no water around. Thank you. So I just had to make that PSA announcement.
Yeah. It's like if you're walking around in Manhattan or whatever, and you're wearing like flip-flops, dude, like, for women, fine. But guys, we don't want to see your feet. We don't want to see your horrible sweaty feet and your disgusting toenails.
Yeah.
Cover that stuff up.
Especially if you run and do all those activities, your feet are beat up.
Oh yeah, exactly. Your corns and all that stuff. Oh God, disgusting. I hope no one's listening to this over their breakfast. So yeah, what were we talking about?
So we're talking about three-piece suits and three-piece suits.
Three-piece suits.
And I think in general, I think in general, you can extend this even beyond three-piece suits. It's just like people thinking outside the box a little bit, or being just more interesting with their clothes in general. I think a lot of times people play it safe. I'm probably one of those people, actually.
Yeah, but people sometimes it's because like they look at me and they're like, "You stand out," and I don't want to stand out. That's that fine. You don't want to be stand out, but how do you? I mean, but at the same time, if you got someone who, like me, I'm fairly. I think I'm less introverted than I used to be, especially since I started podcasting 18 months ago, and then at the beginning of 2022, end of 2021, I made a decision and a commitment to say yes to anything that involved networking, which I'd never done in my life before. I hate doing it. I hate walking into rooms full of people and having to introduce myself. I won't do it. I just go stand in the corner with a drink, look cool, and then I go. But since I started doing that and the podcasting, I've become less introverted. But I'm still not the kind of person who's going to walk into a room and start introducing myself to people. I need someone else to introduce me, or I need just people to come up to me and say, "Hey, how you doing? What are you doing here?" But the way that I draw people in is like, is the way I dress. So, I'll wear more interesting colors than I'm wearing on your show today. I'm all black, but, I'll wear like a green sport coat with a pink shirt and, some interesting kind of pocket square, or, like my lapel pin, some kind of animal or something. So people pick up on these things because you look different to everybody else. And that interests them, and they want to come find out about you. And yeah, so I think for people who I have no idea, I'm probably not even answering your question, but I think for people who I don't know that they can pull something off, or are afraid that they're going to stand out a little bit, what's wrong with that? Especially in this day and age, nobody's making an effort anymore. So I really believe that the people who are going to get on in life and who are going to attract people to them and are going to do well, expand their networks, maybe get on in their careers and so on, are people who, look like they actually care about what they're doing. And one way to do that is basically to be different to everybody else. So yeah.
Because that's a trap now with this. A lot of things are, I think, a lot of people are in the office. You don't have to wear suits anymore. You can just be just casual. And a lot of people I see now they just wear like a polo shirt and some khakis or something. And, that's it. And I had one of my good friends though who actually dresses up a little more. And one thing that happened to him is that he stands out, like you said, and he rose within the company.
Yeah, because guess what? What's your friend's name?
Oh, it's Josh.
Okay, so Josh, right? And what does Josh do?
It's a good question. I don't remember.
Okay, so Josh does something, right? So Josh at Something Incorporated does something in something department. And when the big bosses are like, okay, we need to step someone up in that division. If Josh is kind of wearing polo shirts and khakis like everybody else, or whatever you call them, chinos, Josh isn't going to come spring to mind. He's going to have to work to get noticed. The thing is if Josh is known as being, right, who's the best dressed guy at Something Incorporated? Oh, it's Josh for sure. Like that guy always looks super smart, always looks great, always gets compliments. We always can't wait to see what he's wearing next. So when people are considering someone for a promotion, guess who they're going to think of first of all, before they even start pouring through employee CVs or, I don't know, profiles or whatever. They're going to think of the people that stand out. They're going to think of the people that make a great impression every single day. That's how I got ahead when I worked in the corporate world. I just made sure I was better dressed than everybody else. And also I was kind of dressed in different. So, one of the suits I used to wear when I was like 19, 20 years old was a 3-piece light gray with a pink chalk stripe. Like who the hell wears a chalk stripe light gray suit in an information technology company? Well, the kid that basically who started at the bottom and eventually got moved out of consumer into corporate, and then got to handle his own division. That's who wears a light gray 3-piece pink chalk striped suit.
So if somebody's looking to build their wardrobe, what would you say are the beginning stages? What are a couple essential pieces that you think deserves a staple in every man's wardrobe?
So, like, if you had no clothes and you had a limited budget and you could only get 2 or 3 outfits, I would get a navy suit and I would get a medium to light gray suit. And the reason I do that is because you need a navy suit, because a navy suit, navy of the cold color spectrum, is the color that portrays trust and confidence more psychologically when you meet someone for the first time. That's why the majority of the world's police forces wear blue. A lot of us don't trust the police, but they're not all bad. Depends where you are and what state you're in. Sorry, I mean to get political there.
That's true. We have pretty good cops here, but
okay,
some places are,
yeah, exactly. We don't need to continue down that line. And then you have a gray suit because gray is a confidence color. So when you meet someone the first time, you want to create a good impression. You want to appear kind of friendly, trust, confidence. You wear blue. And then when you meet someone the second time, so first interview, you wear blue, and then gray is your deal closer. So the second time when you go back, you wear your gray suit because that's right. Now we've done all the nice stuff. We're getting down to business today and we're going to close this thing. The other reason why you get a navy suit and you get a medium to light gray suit is because you can then separate the pants from the sport coats or the jackets and you can cross them over. So you can wear the navy jacket from the navy suit with the gray pants, and you can wear the gray sport or jacket as a sport coat, and you can wear it with the navy pants. So suddenly from 2 suits, you've got 4 outfits. You cross them over. So
I didn't think
that's
about that.
a few boxes ticked. Then if you add in like a pair of maybe dark navy chinos and maybe a pair of khakis or tans or taupes, then you could wear the darker chinos with the gray jacket, and you can wear the khaki or tan or taupe chinos with the navy jackets. And the navy jacket becomes a blazer. So a more formal version of a sport coat. So now we're up to 6 outfits. And shirts, then you want I mean, what most guys wear, right? White, blue, but also throw pink in there. Soft pink if you're fair and light haired and or red haired, and a stronger, sharper, icier pink if you're a man of color or you're, a white guy that's got dark hair. Because pink's kind of nice because not as many guys will wear a pink shirt. But the great thing with white, blue, and pink then is that you get a set of 5 shirts, 2 white, maybe 2 blue and 2 pink or whatever. Sorry, that's 6 shirts. But those shirts, white, blue, and pink, will go with the gray and they'll go with the navy. So now you've just opened up your outfit choices enormously, but you've still only got 2 suits, 2 pants, and you've only got 6 shirts. But the combinations there then become, and then that should capture your wardrobe. Then you can start building out from there.
Oh,
those are the things you need. After that, then you can start buying the stuff that you want.
Makes sense. So I got convinced because at first when I was going to get just a suit, I was like, I like black suits. I wanted a 3-piece, just black suit. And there was like, this is so boring. And so I got talked into getting a navy suit for that very reason that you mentioned, because it adds a little color, and then like you said, the trust and everything. But so as we get ready to wrap this down, I one more thing on like dinner jackets and tux. They're not really, should someone get those or just go rent those?
I'd say every man needs a tux in his wardrobe, because the problem is when you rent, the fabrics are horrible because they're usually artificial. It won't fit you. You don't know if it's been cleaned before, and you don't know what the guy before you's been getting up to in it. Oh, seriously, it happens.
Yeah,
it happens. I had someone who hired a tux once, and he called me and he said, "How quick can you make me a tux?" And I'm like, "Not as quick as you need it, but you should just order one anyway, because it's better to need it and not have it than to have it. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it." And and you got all the hassle of, you've got to get it clean before you take it back, and then you've got to take it back and all of that. Just get yourself a bespoke tux. A bespoke tux, I've got clients who I made tuxes for 15, 20 years ago. They still use them today.
Oh, okay. They last.
Unless they've.
I didn't know I didn't know clothes last that long.
As long as you stay relatively the same shape, a tux, a good tux, depends on how many events you do. If you only do 5 or 6 events a year, 1 is fine. If you do a lot of events, then you probably need a couple of tuxes. But a good quality tux will last you a good couple decades, if not your entire life.
Wow.
Unless you get too fat for it, and then you need to get another one.
Well, that's motivation to cycle or run and lift weights as well, and not pick out on food too much, because therefore you don't have to go buy new tux. So if people need more motivation this year, with their resolutions or goals, whatever they want to call them, is you don't want to outgrow your tux.
Yeah.
Or I guess your evening gown too, if for women, right? I guess those last as long. I don't know.
Women will very rarely wear the same outfit within the same friendship group for an event twice.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like a cardinal sin, right? To be photographed in the same dress.
Is that the only dress she's got? Women can't get away with it, unfortunately. Guys can, though. We can wear the same tux to an event, or we can wear the same suit like 2 or 3 events in a row, just put a different colored shirt with it. Looks kind of different.
Men's fashion is much easier. Men's fashion is much easier. Much easier. Less rules. So one of the last questions as we wrap down is what got you into cycling?
I can't run as far. I was overweight, and I felt like I needed to do something. And one of my friends, I saw him lose weight through cycling. So I was like, okay, I don't want to wear that Lycra stuff, but let's give it a go, see how we get on with it. And then I did it the first couple of times, and it was really hard because I was really not fit. And then within a couple of years, I'm suddenly in my late 30s. I'm not in my late 30s now. I'm a couple of years older than that, but I'm suddenly, however it was, I think I took up cycling when I was 35, 36, and by 37, 38, 40, I'm suddenly in the best shape of my life, And I hit I think it was my 40, I'm 45 now. So my 42nd, 43rd birthday, I was like, 84 kilos. I was down to about 14% body fat. I've never been in that shape before. I'm now out of shape again because Christmas was pretty heavy. But I'm back on the bike from tomorrow. But I love cycling because, I leave my life is busy. I'm running a business. We're building a house. I have the podcast. I've just resurrected my YouTube channel. So that's now added another layer to all the things that I need to do. It does get stressful. There's so many deadlines that you have to meet, especially when you're making event outfits and things, and clients will order stuff and forget that you told them it'll take 12 weeks and they suddenly think you can do it in 2. You got all your home stuff to deal with. Life's stressful. So cycling for me is, as well as the keeping fit and so on, it's also about getting away. So when I feel things are getting too much, I will literally stop what I'm doing and I will get my kit on and I will grab my bike and I'll shut the front door behind me and I'll just ride. And all of us, within minutes, I'm away from everything. My stress levels come down, my blood pressure goes down, the endorphins start going. It gives me thinking time. It gives me time and space. That's what I love most about it, as well as the physical challenge. So as to why I started to answer your question, it's because I was fat and I needed to lose some weight. As to why I continue to do it, it's time and space.
What's one lesson from cycling that has translated over to business for you?
Incremental gains. So you don't just get on a bike, whether it's for the first time or when you've had a layoff, because God knows I've had a few accidents and injuries. And things don't just come straight away. You have to work for them and you have to build it up. And it's the same in business as well, that there are certain fundamental habits that you need to do. There are certain activities you need to perform on a regular basis in order to be continuously successful, whether that's picking up the phone to your clients on a regular basis, prospecting and marketing on a regular basis, showing up for whatever it is you do to promote what you do on a regular basis. And you might not see the results straight away. No one goes to the gym to get a 6-pack and expects to leave on the first day of doing a weight training session, wake up in the morning and magically their 6-pack is back. It takes time. You won't probably see results for months. And business is exactly the same. When you're running your own business and you're building a business, unless you're very, very fortunate in the environment, the network, and the people that you're with, basically rich people, completely rich people. Most of us have to work for it. And so you have to work out what the fundamentals are, and then you just have to keep doing them every day and just become a slave to your habits. And then the incremental gains will add up. I guess it's the same in anything as well. It's like if you go on a diet or you suddenly start eating healthy, fresh food one day, you're not suddenly going to be able to breathe and feel more energized within 24 hours. It's going to take a few weeks of doing that for you to feel it. And it's exactly the same with cycling. It's exactly the same with business as well. I have no idea if that answer was value for your audience or not. I'm so sorry if it wasn't.
No, absolutely. I think that's actually that's a perfect way to kind of tie all this together and to conclude this story here. And that made total sense to me. So I'm a little selfish. I'm an only child, so excuse me for that. I haven't got it all out of my system. I probably never will. So I got a lot of value out of that, and that's a helpful reminder to me with that right there. So where can listeners continue to keep up with your latest adventures and many other things that you're up to?
So on the clothing side of things, they can, you can find me on LinkedIn, first of all. I mean, actually, if you search Roberto Revilla, if you stick that into Google, I pretty much come up everywhere. But feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if there's anything I can help or support or advise anybody with to do with clothing. It doesn't mean that you have to have me look after you. I'm just happy to help people. Instagram, Roberto Revilla London. You can find me on YouTube now at Roberto Revilla. And also my podcast, which isn't about tailoring. I've actually talked more on this podcast episode with you than I've ever talked about tailoring on my podcast. I think if you add the minutes together of 80 episodes of my podcast, they still won't even come to anywhere near, probably not even half the amount of tailoring talk I've done on this one. But my podcast is called Tailoring Talk. You can find it everywhere where you get your podcasts. And it's a conversation podcast. Your great host, Julian Hayes II, was a guest recently. That episode will drop at some point in February 2023, depending when you're listening to this. And it's a conversation podcast with self-starters, creators, entrepreneurs. It was never intended to be that way. It was always intended to be about talking about tailoring, but it's ended up being a conversation podcast where I tailor the talk to find out about these amazing people's journeys, the lessons they've learned, so that my listeners can get some help in their lives too.
Well, you can just do like I did and cheat, and I did executive health and life. You can do Tailoring Talk and life if you just want to cheat. So maybe I should...
my last guest, who funny enough is from Connecticut as well. So I've kind of just stayed in the same. So I know you're from Tennessee, aren't you?
Tennessee. Yeah, we're different. Yeah, we're a little different.
Who's I speaking to that's from Connecticut? Oh, I know who that was. That was John Mendes. Sorry. Anyway, I've been in Connecticut twice this week. I've been in Tennessee twice this week, and I've been in the United States for the whole of it, which is kind of weird in a podcasting sense. But he said, now what did he say that was a really valuable teaching point? He said that you need to narrow down and you need to stay within your lane if you want to be discoverable. So he was looking at my website as an example. So he's like a, kind of web SEO kind of expert. But I mean, he's like us, like you would get on really well with him. And he looked at my website live on the podcast recording, which was so embarrassing. And but he said when he went to my blog, like he complimented all of it, like I've got good authority. I don't know the terms, but apparently everything's okay until you get to my blog. And then my blog is like, there's an article on pants, like are pleated pants in fashion or not? That good. There's another article on the iPhone 6 or something, bad. Because it's like if you go to the Food Network and you're watching programs about people cooking and cooking food and baking and stuff, that's what you go there for. If suddenly you sat down to watch the Food Network one night and then a politician came on and was talking about his tax policies, you'd be like, what the hell? So I've been dissuaded from adding any more to my branding to try and... I'm so sorry, Julian, because now I know you're thinking, oh my God, what have I done? You're fine, because health and life are tied together. Yeah. So you're really good.
Yeah, I've made this mistake too, though, actually, because I had to really condense my stuff, because I had an older website that was kind of all over the place. And even like my messaging, when I would talk to people, I would try to just include everybody. So I think this is something that we all do because we really do want to help everyone. So I think this comes from a very good standpoint. And this is also, listeners like, what are they talking about? You can also think about this from a general life sense. This is also something I've learned to do.
No matter what. We're thinking, hang on a minute, like we kind of start executive health and life, and now we've got this tailoring dude on. And okay, actually, I think we've kind of managed to cross the two over a little bit in places.
And then also,
and now all of a sudden, now they're talking about SEO. What the hell?
Yeah, but this is the thing about SEO. You can apply SEO to your life, right? This is a little improvisation, right? Think about this. Maybe if SEO is not applicable to you, but you're still, you're overextending yourself. We're overextending ourselves from a SEO perspective and everything, and we're diluting ourselves. So maybe someone in life right now is overextending themselves in terms of their boundaries and their relationships, and it's affecting their health, it's affecting their confidence and their life overall, because they're just overextended. Whereas just like us, they could focus a little more and get specific on a certain few things. See, there you go.
Yeah. and this is why you're so good at what you do.
Just making things up as we go. That's all this whole thing of life is just a giant experiment. It's just a giant experiment. But I think going back to your podcast is that, listening to how you describe what bespoke is, there's a reason why you would have a bunch of different guests on, because it still ties into the bespoke nature of everything. It's completely made up from the ground up. So you can't just be boxed in. I think if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Something like that. So, but anyway, this is I can talk to you forever. I want to be mindful of your time. I know it's evening time over there. And so so listeners out there, stay awesome, be limitless, and as always, go be the CEO of your health and your life. Peace.